continuation, I welcome you, dear friends, respected guests, and subscribers of my channel. Thank you all very much for following the new episodes and, of course, the live broadcasts. Thank you all very much for liking and, of course, for leaving your questions. Because everything that's happening we will discuss today with Denis Yelisevich. Denis, welcome.
Hello, Alexander.
Friends, as always, the format of our broadcast is very simple. You can ask questions during the broadcast if you have the opportunity, and if the service works for you, you can display them right on your screens. This is the QR code that's on the screen directly in advance. We will definitely use these questions to start the main Q&A session. These questions come from the YouTube community, the closed Shelest Viewers Club, and today's broadcast chat is titled with this poll. What will Zelensky do after the United States military announces a secret peace plan with Russia? So, the options are: agree, there's no other choice, dodge, sabotage, and stall for time. He'll make a show of refusing, relying on the European Union, like an Oval Office 2, all that, just for show. Or there's another option, depending on what's there and what guarantees here. What do you think for the country, for Zelensky himself? In general, these four options don't contradict each other. But the message that was confirmed by both Politico and Reuters looks very interesting, that it wasn't just by chance. For the first time in 50 years, Pentagon officials suddenly came to Kiev. You see, this is an interesting thing. Pentagon officials are coming to Kiev. Looks like they'll need to announce what they've been working on with Russia. And Zelensky is not in the country. Yermak is not in the country. No one is in charge in the country. But the officials have arrived, and attention. And what's the value of meeting with Vitkov in Turkey if the plans and developments will be presented and made public in Kiev for Zelensky, and then they'll even be sent to Moscow? How do you view them? What do you think about this whole configuration?
Well, it's actually a bit more complicated here. It's not that simple. First of all, Umerov met with Vitkov personally in Miami. Vitkov didn't fly to Turkey because there was no one for him to talk to there. There's no point in talking to Ermak or Zelensky. The delegation from the United States didn't come to talk, but to present a fait accompli. Zelensky often said, remember, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. That was his catchphrase. None of that worked out. The situation is complicated, and that's the truth. Very big fish started giving up the top brass to the FBI, but what's the catch? For example, someone like Yermak has almost no one to give up, and he's in the most vulnerable and weakest position. And believe me, this applies to him. His resignation, whether it's just for show, real, or a hidden removal from the position of head of the presidential office, is the least of his problems. That's the situation. This major story has just started and is the last one.
Why is it the final one?
Well, because you have the option to dodge the question or refuse. Basically, knowing Zelensky and how he has acted throughout the whole war, it will be a kind of hybrid between dodging and refusing, and in a very aggressive manner too. So the question is, how will he act? We'll see everything. We'll see his decision on how he reacts to National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. What will he do next? If the pressure continues, or even if the Security Service of Ukraine's attacks on National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office intensify, then I'm right, and Zelensky has chosen this path. If they have any self-preservation or sense left, they should agree. And the Americans, you see, there's really no room for maneuver at all in these talks and in what's been proposed. It's very specific, very specific.
Look, it's specific, clear, understandable, and quite likely, but the room for maneuver will probably, since everything is so specific, probably be in those points that behind the scenes, not publicly, secretly, or as Politico writes, confidentially, Moscow was working out with Washington, or you could say Washington with Moscow. Many people on my channel said, look, it's not just by chance that Lavrov and Vov made those statements. In general, Trump has some kind of homework regarding the agreement, specifically Trump. But here you have to understand the absolute makeup of this whole panopticon is a bit confusing. Well, when the Soros people, who are the fiercest enemies of Trump and the Republicans, bring Pompeo into Firepoint, right now they're writing such details about Firepoint from the case materials that it's just a circus, a shady operation, a fly-by-night company, not an organization, you know? Because they give a reservation there so that the person can go, they talk to their wife like, oh, I'll have a new car there. We call the border guards. They pay them off. Well, it's absolute chaos happening, and the news is pouring in like from a cornucopia, but
it's very
important. Yes, I would like to focus on something specific, on specifics. So Russia and the United States have agreed on something, and they'll probably maneuver around the subject of the agreements. Well, if that's the case, there's nothing else to maneuver about, right? So what's in the package? What are they pressuring Zelensky for?
neutrality, Russian language, religious freedom, elections. In 2026, in the corridor from May to August, squeeze the elections into this corridor. And this year, it's absolutely necessary to sign the framework agreement. You see, Alexander, it's nothing. Everything that's happening right now, in reality, it's not someone losing their temper. It's not by accident. It's not a coincidence. I posted on my Telegram channel on July 22nd. Everything is fully described. This was actually supposed to happen sooner. There were, let's say, some technical delays. Now everything is just moving fast. And here we are today, November 19th. There will be so many more events before the end of the year. Believe me, so many more events that a lot of people have just relaxed. These main players have relaxed this year. Somehow they managed to get through the year. The year is coming to an end. And now at the end, such blows have started. This will keep happening. They'll try to push it, but now they're trying to put Markarova in for Yermak.
So it's true about Markarova, not just a rumor.
They're trying. What do the Soros people want now? They want to basically crush Zelensky, leave him just as a figurehead president like the Queen of England, as some people write, and take full control of the situation.
And here people need to
be careful. And
what's the plan? Well, we see Poroshenko blocking the podium for the second day, even during an air raid alarm, but the podium is still blocked. The cabinet of ministers resigns. Poroshenko wants to be prime minister. Seriously, he wants to be prime minister?
Not prime minister, but head of the National Salvation Committee. Because this is a very real option, and this option could be realized as early as this year. At minimum, to govern Ukraine until elections begin. This is where the most constructive part lies. Because right now our society is divided. Let's have Poroshenko, he'll save us. And I'm against the green regime. It's good to replace them, but that's not
a global solution.
Poroshenko wants to rule all of Ukraine. Let's call him again the closest partner of the Sorosites and the European war hawks. I want to address my fellow countrymen. Nothing will change. You need to understand that. The war will continue. They will keep trying to prolong the war and try to fool Trump. They just want to control the funding that was stolen by the so-called Medici, and now they want access to these flows. And that's the only difference. A fundamental change in the state's paradigm must happen. Ukraine must become free. Ukraine must become a free capitalist country. And not just change the people in power. That's the key point here. But right now, they just want to push for a simple change of faces. The National Salvation Committee, as planned, should consist of 70% Sorosiata. But for Petro Alexievich, I'll say it again on air, there's bad news. In President Trump's team, he is in last place if we're talking about Ukrainian political leaders.
Sorosats, a new setup in parliament. It's clear there's London, there's Zaluzhny, they publish beautiful photos, or for example, they're already spreading rumors there.
Budanov or
Zaluzhny or Beletsky at the helm of Ukraine, that's supposedly good in the London way. So what about America? What does the Trump administration think, and who do they favor? It feels silent with no one to rely on.
Right now, that's not even being discussed. President Trump's team must end the war and determine the election date, confirming it informally but precisely. Not publicly, let's say. Insiders will tell the press everything later. That's the main task now. And before the election, for example, there will be, let's say, about half a year. And during these 6 months, the decision will be made. Because it won't be such a primitive scheme. The United States is backing a certain person there. This will be a game for many, many years because the United States has invested a lot. We know this is a proxy war and there will be a lot of interest for many years to come. Democrats didn't invest resources here just to say, put Soros in charge, we're done. It's not that simple. The strategy isn't just for the upcoming presidential elections, since Ukraine will face a tough political situation. Even if they elect a new Verkhovna Rada and president. Who said he'll serve his full term? Who said the new Verkhovna Rada won't be dissolved in 3 to 6 months? Who says a coalition will even be formed? Can you imagine who will be rushing to get into the Verkhovna Rada now? The same people we just dressed up. We went through this in 2014 when many people in various uniforms arrived, and we later learned who they truly were. Now, all of this could happen again, you could say, times 10 times more, even more concentrated. And that's why everything will be very complicated and not as simple as people would like.
Tomorrow, Zelensky will have a meeting with Servant of the People. Personnel changes are expected in the office and in the cabinet of ministers. It's clear that this isn't the main thing. The main meeting is with these military officials. I just can't understand why Trump is sending the military. Why the military? Why the Pentagon? But again, they do like Kellogg, for example, in the president's office.
All right, Witkoff.
Well, for example, Witkoff, as I understand it, Witkoff was in the plan, but then something changed, also for some reasons. You see, when they send in the military, it's a completely different level of the game. I'll explain what I mean. Right now, we're live, so maybe for someone who will watch the recording later, it might be a bit delayed, or the news might be presented differently. But then the representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Zakharova, comes out and says, we haven't received anything from the United States. If you look at Russia in the last few days, and in general its involvement in this scandal with Mindich, with all these recordings, with all this turbulence, they're not really involved. Sure, someone might laugh about it, someone might joke around, maybe Medvedev will come out and write something, but it's all very targeted and isolated. They just shrug and ask, is it really news that Zelensky is being stolen from, or that there's theft in Ukraine? And for them, the focus is more on the front lines, on the strikes, basically on the military aspect, plus some global international issues. There's the SCO. Putin met yesterday, I believe, with the Prime Minister's representatives. They have their own agenda. Ukraine is being destabilized, and they're sending troops here.
Listen, wasn't there a diplomat or someone else available? Look, it's not exactly like that. Let's start from the main point. General Keller used to speak with them, but now he's absent from the story. General Kellogg's daughter continues posting angry messages. She reposts Sternenko and Dmytro Kuleba, the former minister, saying, "My wonderful friend, thank you." What did I write in response? But he doesn't have to go to the front where you're sending everyone, while she obsessively wants everyone to go fight to the end. General Kellogg has been removed. Why did Steve Witkoff consult the military personnel you're talking about, who came to Ukraine? Why? Because in light of the corruption scandal, a decision was made. Witkoff won't even publicly associate himself with those names. He met informally with Umarov, whose voice was still unknown to the public.
On the tapes.
He's been, in a sense, compromised in his absence. Umarov did what was necessary, acting wisely. And from here on, the military will be talking. And why the military? Because this is no longer just diplomacy. These are ultimatums now. So the military came, as people who specialize in this professionally, they arrived to explain how it would be. Everything is overseen and coordinated by Witkoff.
All right, coordinator of what? And look, judging by the rebellion of the deputies, the rebellion in the Rada, we could very well become witnesses. Well, it's almost like a coup against Zelensky. Oh, they're surrendering territory, capitulation, not capitulation. Zelensky is so afraid of these radicals with flares and a sign saying loser at the president's office as if it's fire.
Let's put it this way. Where do the radicals get their money from? Where do they get their support? These people don't work, right? They've likely never worked before. Someone is funding them, and we know exactly who. And this whole story will be set up in such a way that, of course, the political pressure will be demonstrative, but overall, even the so-called opposition will know its place in this situation. This applies to Poroshenko and Timoshenko as well. What did Poroshenko do? Poroshenko isn't pushing for elections. The word elections isn't even mentioned. He says, these are bad people. Let us good, honest ones come in and we'll win right away. Where have you seen the opposition not demand elections, impeachment, or tougher actions in a situation like this? He says, I demand it, but there's a war. The front is in bad shape. Who caused this? The president is solely responsible for this, as he didn't sign the peace agreements, the ones that could have been signed under better terms. And under his leadership, the country has become extremely corrupt. But that's the root cause of everything that's happening, not just the consequence. Poroshenko and Timoshenko claim Energoatom should go to the people, using communist-style populism that mainly rural residents might believe. Why am I telling you this? I'm just explaining it for the viewers. This already happened. But Ukraine expects things to change completely, and this will happen soon on a much bigger scale. Of course, it's the elections.
The British will hold the elections as I understand it.
No, that's what I remember, what you're talking about. This information came up earlier, a few months ago. The British, like the Americans, will be observers. Guarantors.
No.
Let's do everything.
About the interested parties. So we have an oligarchy, we have it. Here, Kolomoisky is glowing with happiness. Have you noticed the last few days? Yes, he's just like this, really. I don't know, it's like he has... People say different things about him, like how he's sitting. Some insist, no, he's sitting. Well, for example, I have information that he repaired 3 or 4 cells, and they keep moving him from cell to cell so that repairs can be done there. So it's clear that he's in custody. Well, basically, he's not in royal chambers, not like in Servant of the People where you move a wall and have all the comforts of life, right? But still, he's been in custody for quite a long time, and he looks really healthy. It even seems like his health has improved. Against this background, he comments on the story with Mindic, saying, yes, Mindic is nobody. As is customary here, the first proper take is that Mindic is the bad guy, he's not good, Zelensky is not to blame, he has nothing to do with it, he doesn't know anything at all. It's all these evil, bad, corrupt members of his inner circle. Well, there Ermak didn't keep an eye on things, and now they've shifted from blaming Mindic as the evil mastermind behind everything to blaming Ermak. And that's how they operate. It's like the dogs were thrown a bone and all rushed to tear it apart. And Zelensky is traveling around the world saying, look, I'll bring you planes in a few years, or we'll start up some gas, or we'll buy something else. And everything is for the front, sometimes with kids, sometimes with the military, just like Lenin, you know, like Lenin.
Always alive, yes. And
here an important point arises. Which of the influence groups can emerge now? Well, specifically, I mean, they've always said Kolomoisky has compromised Kolomoisky, but it never really played out. And now Kolomoisky can actually bring in some of his own people. Well, not the ones who are there. I mean, not from his past life, but his new ones. For example, will Akhmetov join the game? But the question is, who will they support? Who will Pinchuk and those so-called London-backed guys before? Well, what about Zaluzhny, who they're preparing, right? Who can you rely on? What do you think, Ukrainians? What kinds of fires will they be rushing into with power behind them?
I can answer this question definitely. Ukrainians are not following someone but something, an idea. We need to stop focusing on personalities and start focusing on ideas, on concrete proposals. If everything that's happened hasn't taught Ukrainians that something needs to be radically changed in this country, then nothing will help anymore. If they still try to find a personality to fall in love with and shift all the responsibility onto him, and then a month later start throwing mud at him, no ideas or concrete proposals, Ukraine can't be reformed anymore. We need to start over in a new paradigm, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, Kolomoisky is in a good mood. Yes, Kolomoisky, you can call him whatever you want, but he's a smart person who did what he was supposed to do. That's why he's in a good mood. He'll definitely join the game, and so will Akhmet. Pinchuk, as you mentioned, is the one closest to London in the context of Zaluzhny. As far as I know, Lavochkin works very closely with Pinchuk in a political sense. And that's how the political arena will look. But people, I emphasize and repeat, should focus on ideas. If you want to vote the old way using the old scheme, you'll get the old result. And the old result is war and a lot of deaths.
Who is the peace party? The party?
I don't divide it that way.
I know it's a popular thing. Let's think. No?
The parties of peace.
Listen, you can't just swap one war party for another war party, because these framework agreements plus elections plus a reset, as far as I understand, according to the scenario you're describing, there will be many more events. Zelensky will not sign the final peace agreement.
Yes, the final one. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It won't happen that soon. It's the final agreement after which the political map could even change, and definite changes to the constitution of Ukraine. And I'm glad for a complete change of the constitution of Ukraine to adopt a completely new one. So it's very global, possibly even partial territorial restructuring. We've talked a lot with you about federal systems. Yes, Yura, you can disguise it any way you want. And there will be many, many such radical changes, including in the country. Without this, nothing will progress or improve, and we'll stay a poor, unsuccessful country at risk of war. And if people want this, I wash my hands of it. If people want something different, then please, there will be people who can make it happen and represent those interests.
That's my point. If we replace Zelensky, who would take his place? Because, judging by what's happening now in recent days in Parliament, according to politicians' statements, everyone is saying, look how badly they fought, look how badly they did. Yes, we'll do well, we'll strengthen mobilization and produce many drones.
That's it.
And so on and so on. You see, I'm just saying that this is agony. I realized that yesterday during that message. They displayed the wreckage and admitted launching an army tactical missile system at Voronezh. But it's clear, well, on Bankova they read it, basically. It's an agreement between the United States and Moscow. And they highlighted this story precisely so that Russians would come out, political Russians or some representatives. Putin could come out today dancing with a robot. His program is completely different now. Putin and the Russian robot. It's trendy now. That's the robot.
It's not set up. The robot fell this time.
Not this time. Humanoids, humanoid robots. The Chinese impressed everyone, but this is happening in every country, even Musk and everyone else in the world. People are thinking about robots, not about
how or what.
About where to put people because robots can already carry things, movers aren't needed anymore, and so on. It's about replacing professions and reorganizing society. People have this on their minds in normal societies, yes, but here it's all about the army, Movavira, and so on. So this was deliberately thrown in so that Russians would come out and say, oh, you Americans are firing such missiles at us, well, through Ukraine's hands, basically. Or, for example, the story about railway sabotage in Poland. It's clear Zelensky is commenting on this today. You see it and think, it's obvious who's responsible. They had to do something. So are there no ideas or what? Or did Shoigu survive and that's why the information bomb didn't work out?
No, you said it yourself. There are no ideas. So before everything was running on inertia, you could have a victory plan, a power plan, a resilience plan, a peace plan. There was some kind of reserve, and by inertia, it just kept going until now. Now that's it. And that's why he went off the deep end. These photos with kids. Look, see who's trying to whitewash him. He's flying to Macron. He's negotiating for 100 rafales over the next 10 years. The price for 100 rafales is about $23 billion. Can you imagine that amount? Ukraine and France both lack the funds. France is also facing a severe financial and political crisis, so they can't provide the money either. But Macron, a main European leader, shakes hands and signs this. In 6 months, neither Macron nor Zelensky may be in office, and everything could change. So Macron is whitewashing at the height of a corruption scandal. This is what should worry Europeans, especially decent and respectable people. But that's how it is. Everything else, yes. This strike, well, I won't talk about the railway, but about this shelling, yes, it all looks very strange. This is already agony. He's trying to hold on. There are no options, Sasha, do you understand? And now he'll also have to make some extraordinary decisions. This decision by Volya Termak is the most obvious way to get rid of the negativity that has built up around Zelensky. Well, let's put it this way. Without Zelensky, there would be Ermak. No, without Zelensky, there would be Mindic. No. Zelensky is central here.
then why do they want to keep him and make him a lame duck? Zelensky?
Without Zelensky, no. Without Zelensky, no. Without Zelensky, no. Zelensky, no. Without Zelensky, no. Without Zelensky, no. Zelensky, no. But in fact, he won't be in charge of anything. This is a rock-solid story that's being implemented right now. It can't be any other way. Then there will be elections. That's it.
Why can't it be different? Wait, why did you say that? That's actually important. And I remember this being discussed, and at quite a serious analytical level. You called it the Committee for the Salvation of Ukraine, right? Yes, the national one.
Of salvation.
National salvation, yes. In general, as it was said, it's about some kind of external governance. It's clear that
These comrades,
who will be in the national salvation, they're all under the control of external forces. Well, those who are pushing this. But basically, why? It's a normal idea to remove Zelensky, reformat the Rada, elect a speaker, and tell the speaker, that's it, now you're the acting president. And, actually, who said that the front would collapse without Zelensky? That's also something from the West. It's a misconception.
yes. You're right, it's a misconception, but that's not what Americans mean. They mean that if there are a lot of people with weapons who are uncontrolled, you just physically can't control that many people with weapons. Anything can happen, and that's a real risk. But it's not as if without Zelensky the front will collapse. That's the narrative they're promoting. If you see claims that without Zelensky the front will collapse, as if he's the actual commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Somewhere in the field, sitting in trenches, Syrskyi is there. You could replace him, for better or worse. That's how it is. America must consider global factors and avoid risking this situation, leading to this decision. I can even tell you the name. You mentioned international representatives. It will be called international supervisors, and they will be there. This is being specifically considered right now. By the way, this isn't in the press yet.
This might...
They'll say it soon.
Like Gaza, yes, the World Council led by Trump, and here there will be a council of supervisors also led by Trump. Well, because he ended the war, an honorable mission.
If not Trump, then who?
Someone
Like Tony Blair in Gaza. A figure like that from the recent past could very well appear, but that would probably be the main person, the one at the forefront. But there will be a lot of supervisors. Well, at least several, that's for sure. That's what it will be called. International supervisor.
Macron basically said nonsense about things ending in a year and sending troops. I have a coalition of willing parties here, and its headquarters is near Paris.
Uh-huh.
They have a reason.
Macron's statements over the past year and a half often completely contradict each other and never come true. You know, right now what Macron needs to think about is himself specifically and his political career. That's more relevant for him than these fairy tales he's telling.
Well, wait a minute. And Ursula says, I have a question. If the Europeans give Zelensky money, will that change the situation?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
A major decision was made in the United States about a second round of arms and ammunition. Europe lacks this. Trump is selling to NATO cheaply and NATO is reselling it. This can't last long term. A budget deficit of 60 billion euros, that's a very large amount. So do you understand what the situation looks like right now? There is a patient who unfortunately has died. They connected him to a ventilator and the oxygen is running out there. That's what's happening. So they bring a new one, but the patient is dead. He needs to be disconnected, that's all. That's what needs to be done. The country needs a full reset, starting from scratch like in 91. I'm not exaggerating or using big words. That's really how it is. An unreformable system. Viewers, please note every single corruption scandal. Today, a National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine conducted searches at Naftogaz, yes, in the security department. Major corruption is always linked to state-owned enterprises, which is why everything should be privatized. And those that are called strategic first and foremost require quality management, not all this other stuff.
This is your ideological story. You keep pushing it all the time. By the way,
subscribe to
Yelisevich. The link is in the description. YouTube user Dennis streams, interacts with viewers, and analyzes the situation. in general, Telegram, YouTube, you are welcome. We will talk about this. We will touch on this today. That's kind of it. But what is there to live for? What is there to recover for? But I'm interested in absolute sudden, let's say, well, such figures who might emerge in all of this. Figures and separatism interests me, Western figures above all. Because if we just, again, we all comment in the news stream and with certain emotions, but everything falls into clear chains. I also released an interview on my channel today, also about the complete re-establishment of Ukraine. Well, obviously in a different way, in a different direction, so that Ukraine would look towards Russia, for example. Your opinion is that it should look towards the civilized West, as you call it, a progressive society and so on. So that's what the discussion is about. I want to emphasize that people need to understand we are for Slavic Rus, and you, for example, are for the civilized West, or maybe the high-tech West, or even the decaying West. It doesn't matter. Look, a very important aspect is that here comes Portnov. We discussed this on air today. What is unclear about the investigation in Spain? There are rumors that he was really digging up something, but he wasn't even digging on Zelensky. He was kind of working with Zelensky. They were cooperating behind the scenes. He has been following Poroshenko's trail for a long time, and he dug up something that could be useful for Trump, you know, to basically destroy the Democrats. Then there's also this strange death, the suicide of the crypto broker who was in debt. So you could say all of this can be seen as links in the same chain. This is Odessa. Zelensky is taking Odessa for himself as mayor. Whether you had a passport or not, everyone, get under the bench. We put our own Security Service of Ukraine agents in place. That's also a certain signal. So we have a number of signals that need to be put together, like a mosaic. So, Dennis, they knew all of this about 6 months ago, how it would all come out. They
could have prepared.
But why is everyone so terrified? Zelensky, the servants, and actually everyone. That's what worries me. That's what's unclear. And you...
What do you mean? Zelensky knew 6 months ago?
Of course.
No, watch dictators' brains. Dictators are not like that. They are not capable of thinking coolly or assessing the situation rationally. They reach a state of constant euphoria where you feel like you're second only to God and you think it will affect someone, but not you. Every dictator in history believed it couldn't happen to him until the end. It's the same story. They were absolutely sure of their political invincibility. But who can you really blame here? Well, General Kellogg shook hands with Zelensky, Yermak, and now who is he shaking hands with? The one the FBI is digging under. I mean, I don't know if General Kellogg knew him personally or not, but somehow all of this looks strange. Or these Spanish kings and all the others, Macron as well, you all legitimize this. But Zelensky, yes, he didn't think about it. By the way, we skipped the Verkhovna Rada a bit, but that's on the same topic. You're talking about reformatting. They're demanding to fire Yermak. The Soros supporters and, of course, Arakamia are demanding Yermak's dismissal. After all, the Zelensky regime is divided into several, so to speak, clans. Arakamia is the rival clan to Yermak. Fedorov is also involved. Hetmantsev is now speaking out, signaling the start of a clan struggle. After being pressured about the lottery, Hetmantsev is threatening Fedorov with compromising material from others. You see, they're all compromised, they're all using this state, and they're all feeding off government funds. This is the most vicious story, and maybe it's the very reason for all our problems. That's why the surprises for Zelensky don't end, no.
They don't end. They don't end. All right. But still, if we talk about leaders and separatism, like in the map from the series Servant of the People, right now, many people remember that episode when Zelensky, well, Holoborodko, is visited by the Prime Minister who says, get out of prison. So, I mean, really, could it all end up with prison for Zelensky and such a harsh collapse?
Of the country? No, the country won't collapse. First, unfortunately, Zelensky is unlikely to end up in prison. Second, he will spend several years in isolation. That's a fact. The biggest blow will be to Yermak, after all. The biggest blow. He won't have the kind of immunity he's probably dreaming about right now regarding separatism, especially Western separatism, as you mentioned? No, there isn't any. What exactly am I advocating? So, for example, Dmitry Ug wants exactly what you mentioned, to move towards Russia and Belarus. No need for a witch hunt. Let him come and resolve things through discussion. Here's the main point. Everyone should have a chance to speak and appear on the political stage, with the people deciding. If we don't do it this way, if we keep imposing labels like these are like this and those are like that, dividing Ukrainians, that's how it all ends. Like today, territory lost and cemeteries stretching for kilometers. Did you see the photo from Lviv? They're already burying people.
There's nowhere else. That's Western separatism in reality. Lychakiv Cemetery, just 20 spots left, maybe fewer now.
Left. I don't see any connection. Separatism. Look.
There is a connection here, because we're forgetting the main point. These people, whom I don't know, I'm not saying I have a specific circle of acquaintances. I have a large circle of acquaintances, all kinds of different people. From the most devoted patriot, someone with Bandera's portrait over their bed, to an absolute cosmopolitan and citizen of the world, to someone pro-Russian who openly declares their love for Putin. Specifically, yes, everyone, this whole circle of acquaintances, they all say, geez, what are they doing? This is a huge scandal. And now they're telling us, listen, these 100 million, this Mindich, or all of them, it's all just a drop in the ocean. It's just like, it's like a pimple breaking through, just a little spot, but inside there's a huge abscess. The sums involved are enormous. And they
say, guys.
Everyone says, you see this? I saw this. By the way, the societal trend, for example, when I interviewed with Dudu Potap, it was different for Ivan Dorn. Well, or Kyivstoner, for example, gave an interview to Dudu, or we've seen some other high-profile interviews. For example, Pugacheva gave her own interview. Yes, that one. That is, people with completely different positions are coming together as one. And here, this Mindich Gate united everyone to kick them out. Just some say to kick out Zelensky, others say Yermak. And now all of this divide and conquer, they're all trying to play it out technologically and politically. You see, that's what I'm talking about. And that's why there are just some dissatisfied people. And you ask, what is this connected to? The cemetery? Yes. It's connected to the fact that we forget the main thing, that during this time, soldiers are dying, being killed, the missile strike on Turmoil. Those are the rockets.
Yes, 25 people in
the grave. And
there today.
A miraculous rescue. Of course, it was God who helped. I don't know when they cleared the rubble there. And on the top floor, that's a truly unique case. A man survived. They pulled him out basically from
underneath. It's morning for me. I haven't even seen it yet. I'm just now hearing about this from the 20th.
Man, so you see, it's an absolutely terrible tragedy. Ternopil is being shelled not for any special reason. It could be any city. Also, Zelensky is not in the country. Umarov is traveling, meeting with the FBI or the Vitkos while everyone is tense and rushing around. Meanwhile, people like that sit safely as we can't leave and are under rocket attacks. So there's a very serious wave of negativity against this government. And here, maybe, as you say, the Americans are calculating every possible scenario. Right now, you just need to throw in some story and then spin it the right way. And this is a very dangerous time right now. Where do you see this danger?
We see danger in fantasies. We see fantasies. Accidental adults unchecked. Zach talisman, Zach hidden, bracelet follows. You see, you understand. I don't remember if we talked with you or not. But what 15 or 16-year-old would join such organizations? The family missed something. The parents didn't raise him well. And he can't find his place in life. That's what's scary. And these immature minds are very susceptible to strong recruitment. And this could be the main threat. Actually, the key to unity is in diversity. Just admit it, Ukraine is united, but the people in it are somewhat different. As a Kiev resident, I don't want to tell people in Lviv or Odessa how to live. Still, we're all Ukrainians and should accept some rules, just as Americans accept values. And these values should be declared by the new president of Ukraine. I see this as freedom of speech, individual and economy. Subtitles. I see it as based on maximum
freedoms. So someone will come up to you and say, Yelisevich, are you for capitulation and you say you support freedom and releasing Dmitruk, yes, that is, if he, let's say, betrayed the motherland. Well then, go ahead and prove that he wasn't extradited from London, especially since apparently there are some rules there, because you're making up fake charges and pushing nonsense, so go ahead and extradite him. There was a trial, it lasted 5 days, but everything fell apart and he stayed there. And they just keep going. That's the case here with all these deputies. You can have different opinions about them. Shevchenko, Dubinsky, and several other politicians are in pretrial detention without verdicts.
They're just
sitting there, that's it. You see, and for what? Why? Because there's nothing, if you just look at it rationally. Well, there is no proper court in Ukraine, it turns out. No court that the police would trust. In Ukraine, there isn't one. They just catch draft dodgers and extort money. Well, if it's something political, then they raise the infantry and quickly pin it on someone, find someone, and even then it's some fake person, like with the murder of Perubi, for example, or someone else. They quickly found someone, pinned it on them, case closed. So, we don't have it. There. The Security Service of Ukraine deals with the economy, and there are some others, some different ones. And
they were burdened with assignments.
Yermak, understood. On the tapes, Alibaba is sitting and telling who needs to be pressured, which of the anti-corruption people. So, we used to talk about a shadow government, meaning that somewhere out there Azarov is sitting in Moscow and they're creating something in exile or something like that. It's all shadowy for us. The black accounting with the black government turns out to be around Kvartal 95, and that's what we've come to. Zelensky says he doesn't know and assures everything will be fine. That's why we're talking about terrible scenarios. The scenario of civil war. You know, that's probably the scariest scenario. It could disrupt all the Americans' plans and decisions.
I agree, but I want to tell you again, who could provoke it? Russia's people who finance the forces that have the weapons and skills for this.
And probably
even the desire of Russia's people. Because I'll be honest with you, if you recognize the status of the Russian language in Ukraine and the neutral status plus freedom of religion, these are the three pillars, the three whales on which Source's system was based. This whole story from 2013 and 2014, if you take that away, they have nothing left to divide people. Here's what I want to say. What will you use to divide us? We all have white skin, so you can't separate us by skin color. Well, that's it. The story's over. And that's what they feel like fire. And of course, there's also from the Civil War. I only have hope in President Trump's team. They get it. I give it no more than a 10% chance. But you mentioned Dmitriuk. He's basically my main opponent there. But as you said, someone might call me a capitulator. That's just how it is now. Because of state control, propaganda, censorship, and lack of free speech, everyone needs a voice. If some citizens vote for a scoundrel, I might see them as one, and others might see me that way too. That's the choice of the citizens of Ukraine. If the citizens of Ukraine allow critical
mistakes, I believe that he does. Where is the UMS broadcast from? Well, they allocated there. Well, he is directly, everyone. We want to resume exchanges by the end.
It has become more active this year.
Many processes to end this war. There is no alternative to peace. No,
the words of Zelensky, alternatives
to peace. Direct speech?
Yes, Alexander. About the exchanges in the story of the shelling of kids, there wasn't an exchange. You'll notice exchanges only happen on holidays like Independence Day or when Zelensky faces a scandal. Now they're more active with exchanges during Midichgate. How mean, you see our people as bargaining chips. I want these people to realize it themselves, those who risk their lives. And many die after captivity because they're worn out. There's no health left at all. That's what we need to talk about. Erdogan, by the way, Erdogan now. They used to be friends with Zelensky. Now I've heard that a lot has changed recently, even in the last month. So it's very interesting, very telling regarding the Istanbul agreements in a broader format. That is, imagine we can now state with you on November 19, 1925, since May 1922, all of this was in vain. It was a political war. Before that, it was existential. Afterward, it became purely political. Many died, lost property and territory. It's a nightmare. Horrible. And that's why Zelensky should be held accountable, and Yermak too, and everyone involved.
As they say in Ukrainian, Nakiba, why was this even necessary? Of course. And actually, oh, listen. It's clear that now we will witness a lot of statements, a lot of, let's say, decisions. But as I mentioned, how do you assess? How are these Zelensky's cards? So he's meeting with the servants, and he said earlier that he would take some action. What are his next steps being calculated right now? On the board, has the direct threat to him personally, meaning his position, passed? I'm not talking about his life, because in such turbulence, of course, anything can happen. It's still a war after all, with missiles flying and so on. But let's consider this option. Well, because we go on air in a humane way, we don't have that kind of rat-like or biting attitude like, let's kill Putin, or, for example, let's launch a missile at Zelensky. That doesn't solve anything. We care about the bigger picture. What pieces or cards does he have? Not in his sleeve, but at least in his...
Spread. Well, hand on heart, again, knowing Zelensky, I see only one option, to go into complete lawlessness. You know, I have heard rumors that lately, at meetings of the security forces and special services, political assassinations have been seriously discussed, or something like that. So, pressure on National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. Do you understand in what way? In all sorts of ways. Basically, just really go all out. And then he'll buy himself some more time, but in the big picture, he's already lost. You see, if I were in his place, my goal would be to save face as much as possible, and maybe something else too. Just don't...
understand how political assassinations can change anything in this situation, you know? I saw that information too, but I'm very skeptical about it. Well, first of all, because I know him personally. For example, there's a guy named Vsevolod who also writes that they were told to kill me. Shari mentions names, all that stuff.
Are serious people.
Right, not to the right.
And to the left.
Do you understand all of this? This is Budanov. This is Zelensky giving orders to Budanov, to Maliuk, to Budanov. Do you understand? Well, again, I don't know who needs to be killed so that all of this, so to speak. And about this whole story, since I remembered, yes, these unserious people, and you also got into some public arguments with a sick person. Is Palashov alive? And now Zelensky will fall and he will come back from the other side. Well, you see, this is just something absolutely, well, at a low level. It's nonsense. That's why I don't, Sash,
I didn't get involved because of that, but for personal reasons. The strike hit my channel. I'm serious. I don't talk about it. Ignatiy Viktorovich, unfortunately.
He left. So about political...
assassinations. Yes, well, look, first of all, we're not talking about those who are on the territory of Western countries. There is a strict ban on the territory of Western countries. In Europe, especially America, it's all, well, ridiculous to discuss inside Ukraine, and there all the opportunities allow it. Then suggest another solution, if not this lawlessness. National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine officers are being threatened. And this will also be on the tapes, well, literally what needs to be done, to whom, and so on. Yes, right now we are discussing, in fact, a real catastrophe, the worst historical time for our country in the entire history of independence. We've come to this point. Look at our society where this idiot from Lviv is saying that the cat should say nyal instead of meow. I used to joke about this with Russia years ago, but now it's happening in my country. And it's even worse now, you could say. Yeah, it's just getting completely absurd. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. When it comes to political assassinations, I receive a lot of material, probably like you. And at some point, Petrov blurted out during the broadcast that he really hopes the president will still approve a non-public decision. With the hint, well, he works there, he handles all that stuff. And he can't wait for someone to get killed. Although if I were him, I would take care of my own, so to speak, safety in 2026. Where could he go from Ukraine, considering legal consequences, not death? Many are in similar situations. Him. That's why you see that we
are discussing here.
Such things, murders, we're
discussing a nightmare. Because in any case, no matter how it turns out, no matter how it doesn't work or how long it takes, whether it's a transfer of power through elections or through some temporary governing body, it will be chaos. And attention, this is what I wanted to discuss separately. So what about the money? What about the economy? Of course, I could joke with you. We could laugh about those Rafales and the liquefied gas coming to Odessa. All this is during the war, all of this. Obviously, it's all about money, where to get it. I remember how Zelensky was boasting over the weekend, just a couple of days ago. Look, 1 million people applied for Vova's 1,000, then 2.5 million applied for Vova's 1,000. Here, look, here, you should be crying, you should be crying. This 1,000 is $20, 20 euros, well, it doesn't matter. So people still receive it, they still try to apply for it. Not for any other reason, but because it's some money for them during a harsh winter and with a destroyed energy system. How will the Ukrainian people survive and what will they live on during this transition?
During the power transition, they will rely on European donor money. Communism continues. In the future, we should consider not just taking money, but also why we're taking it. Because I would be the first to speak up for money. If we take them, let's say, for a transitional period, during the implementation of super reforms as insurance, like Javier Milei does, then yes. But to take money just to spend it on officials, on war and on theft, it's just foolishness to burden the country with that. That's why your argument, what you're saying is that the transition period won't drag on, because it's simply pointless. A year can't be only 9 months impossible.
Likely. Mobilization will be intensified. What do you think is this?
About political assassinations? There. This is one of the points where he could also go in.
A rampage and...
Please?
Globalists, because right now this is the story. He himself said it, Zelensky personally, and now there are many speakers of this kind. Tolka and Rachmaninov, also from Holos, say, look, we have a problem. The Chechens are making it worse. Although this information also directly contradicts the president's, well, or Zelensky over there. It's odd to call him president since last May.
All right, okay.
But de facto, he's still the president.
That's why it's like this.
And that's what we call it. Look, says Zelensky, we killed or wounded everyone Russia recruited in 2025. That was his direct speech literally a month ago. It's just that people no longer remember all these pompous statements. Today they come out and say, guys, their losses have decreased, so they're actually gaining while we're losing. With 20,000 captured and 30,000 missing in action in just a month, that's not even counting the losses. And obviously, there's a physical loss of people from the front, so we're short on people. Actually, in all of this, we really need to take a sober look at the prospects of mobilization. And at this war until the last Ukrainian, if this process is set in motion, then as you correctly said, Europe will willingly provide money. But what about the Americans? Maybe things are being set up so the Americans will give everything and travel to Moscow. These generals from the Pentagon said, we're washing our hands of this, goodbye, we're lifting sanctions from Russia, let Europe keep their own sanctions. And basically, we'll mind our own business while poor Europe keeps struggling with Ukraine, and then truly dark times await Ukraine and...
ruin. Well, I might agree with you that this is all true if I didn't know that basically the decision has already been made. You understand? Let's do the math regarding mobilization and everything else. It's the end of November now. Since November 5th, yes, according to the documents, the latest martial law started. It was introduced, well, extended from the 5th, I think, so until February 5th. So if we go by the optimistic scenario, it might not be extended after February 5th. Maybe it won't be called martial law. They might use another name and start preparing for the elections. If things don't go smoothly, they could extend it again. But mobilization might also decrease when the framework agreement is signed.
Agreement? Look, a framework agreement means that this could all drag on for a long time. I'm interested in a very simple, specific question at the end, and then we'll talk with the viewers. This all looks very good, of course. So where is Russia in all this? But really, what interest does Russia have in ending this? Right now, all the attention is on the peaks of weakness, the Zelensky regime, the state, Ukraine. Well, disappointment among the people, or, well, society. I don't really want to use that word. That's what the Soros crowd uses. Basically, disappointment among people. This is the hardest situation, including at the front in winter. So what are the reasons, what arguments does that Trump have for Russia? The spirit of anchorage is great, but right now, from an operational standpoint, the Kremlin and Putin need to solve some major tasks by military and military political means. And what does the Kremlin think about this? Those who have maintained their position up to this point, well, it's a kind of stoic silence. Yes, I mean, we won't be in Turkey. We don't know. We're not aware of it here. They're just pretending, or actually, what did he offer them?
Trump, Russia, of course, is pretending. All this, like, it's not me, the cow isn't mine. Here are the latest statements from Russian spokespeople. I have read all of this. I've seen all of this. It was proposed to lift all sanctions and have very strong cooperation in the economic sector. You understand? To lift all sanctions from Russia, or most of the sanctions, and their frozen assets, not to touch them, that's a lot. Besides, let's say they take Pokrovsk now, annex it. What happens next? Again, this opposition war, I don't know if I talk to any Russians, but I don't. I know and understand the American position, so that's how I see it.
So how do these positions coincide?
Dennis, lifting sanctions and economic cooperation alone aren't enough. The Russian economy is struggling. And now this will also be a great move for Putin.
A political one, you could say that.
He can declare himself the winner of everything.
Anyway, no, it's clear that they'll declare him the winner. I'll tell you more. If Zelensky remains in some form temporarily until the elections, or with a committee, without the Committee of National Salvation. We'll see now, because not all the tapes are available. We
are waiting.
A hoarse voice on these tapes. Well, it turns out no one was lying. It turns out the leaks were confirmed. What he said there was very unflattering about the Ukrainian people. It was Zelensky himself who commented, who is already mentioned there. People are sending him texts, calling him back, but we haven't actually heard his voice yet. This voice could really become like the shot of the aurora, in the sense of being revolutionary when the voice is heard and things really start to happen. Processes, what am I getting at? What I'm saying is that Zelensky should also declare victory. Well, how else would you declare victory? If sanctions are lifted from Russia, for example, that would be a direct blow to...
You know, someone will definitely believe Putin when he says he won. Maybe he did win, but Russia hasn't won in the long run because of what it has done.
As for
Zelensky, it's the same thing. People who listen to Petrov or similar figures are the ones who will easily believe in victory or something else. I'm serious, buts or bots. Some still believe that without Volodymyr Alexandrovich, both the front and Ukraine itself would fall. For them, Ukraine is Zelensky. I've heard that. There are people like that, and we have to take that into account and acknowledge it. There aren't many of them, but they do exist. Well, not a few. There are millions, a couple million people like that.
You know, it's been very telling lately, and I'd like to focus on that and really emphasize it. According to my information, this is not yet public in the United States. There is indeed. Well, like the Americans, there's Paulina Luna, right?
That is...
There's even someone who had a falling out
with Trump.
But I think they'll make up after this Epstein thing. Once they process it in America, they'll make up. I think they'll process it because over there... Well, bringing up this story with Clinton and Trump, yes, with someone, Bobby S. All of this. Oh, that's all over American TikTok right now. It's all about who was with whom, where, yes, smacking their lips or not. It's awful. And I also like this. Putin has a recording of young Trump with Clinton, basically. I mean, just what kind? We thought we had all sorts of crazy people here like Petrov, but in America they have crazy people too. So, Taylor Green, this whole story, I mean, even... But this isn't public yet, as long as Rubio, personally Rubio, they reach out their hand, well, sort of treating representatives of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church as unlawfully persecuted. There are a number of meetings happening right now, and among them, religious freedom and the ban on persecution are on the agenda. Please comment if you have anything to say about Epstein in this case, and about this fact, let's say, about this work.
The dream that Trump would be exposed in the Epstein case, playing some serious role, is the dream of our so-called patriots. That's clear. There are different kinds of people in America. I wouldn't say many are crazy, but politics here is very tough. That's true about the church. There's a lot of work on that in America now. Why? You could say this is overseen by Rubio. He's a real Christian, very devout, a deeply religious person, and for him this is almost a personal matter. Well, Vance is also religious, and for example, Vance's people are a part of this delegation. So you could say Vance has also done a lot for this delegation that's currently in Kyiv. So it was also his idea, or maybe even his idea. He played a major role in this and was formerly in the military. And Rubio is, yes, a person who is very closely connected to Christianity. Recently, it was announced there will be a capital session on this. Yes, that's the level. Just imagine, this is already very serious.
Serious? Well, let's see where it goes. And maybe that's the right thing. So that's how we end this broadcast. Because after this, there will really be some new statements, mind-blowing details, some simply shocking things that will come crashing down on our heads. And everyone who follows politics in America, in Ukraine, and in general the war in Ukraine, this is very important. I want to emphasize that it's very important to talk about good things. Well, look, what's bad, right, Vance, Rubio? The Senate, they gather and hold sessions there. Yes, about the fact that it's good for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church to have freedom, that the Russian language is good, it's according to the constitution. Our minds were simply rewired during these war years, and by these language ombudsmen who went so far as to say that a Ukrainian Ukraine is possible. If you ban it...
Telegram, yes, she's crazy. I mean it literally.
It's crazy to ban Telegram. If that happens, Ukraine will be unrecognizable, just called Ukraine in name only. What are you talking about? I mean, wait, how is it in France, for example? I'm just taking a guess here without any specific references. If Telegram isn't banned in France, will the French just disappear, or will French France come to an end? That's just idiocy. This idiocy needs to be cleaned up like the orgy in stables. Friends, let's sum up the results of the poll. What will Zelensky do after the United States military announces a secret peace plan with Russia? 11%. It depends on what's in there and what guarantees there are. I expected this option to win, but people said it depends on what's included. Still, it ended up last. That means nobody cares what's in there or what guarantees there are. Basically, nobody cares what will be done. So, 18% will agree because they have no choice, and 19% will dramatically refuse. He has the European Union as a cover there and all that, the Oval Office and everything. Well, 53% believe he'll dodge, disrupt, and stall, which is what he's been doing recently.
For the past 6 months.
Navalny.
Office. You see, just like we discussed at the beginning, that's about how people...
Voted. Yes, friends. So let's move on to your questions. Thank you all very much for writing and responding. Let's do a blitz round, starting with the YouTube community. So... not clear, Dennis. Your viewer writes... In September, during your broadcast, when viewers asked about the fruit, you answered that the fruit was no longer relevant, since Zelensky would agree to everything. So why did Trump or the globalists launch Operation Mindich Gate if last week you said that the Mindich tapes are the very fruit that so many were eagerly waiting for? There's some kind of dissonance. What happened in the last 2 months that made this operation so urgent? Where are they rushing to? And that guy you mentioned yesterday on your Telegram channel, is that about something even more serious than the Mindich tapes?
Thank you for your answer. And thanks to my follower. Yes, that's me.
I published it. Guy in quotes is just what they meant. Really, I
posted a fruit emoji as we agreed I'd do when the regime's real fall starts. It's just that people, someone might join a stream and whatever they like, they'll put it off for 3 months and not watch it. And people interpret it differently, but it's nothing serious. About the tapes, you mentioned Kripli Golos. For example, I don't believe they'll publish Kripli Golos. Despite all my hopes, they won't publish it. They'll refer to that same martial law and say that it will just demoralize the front. I mean, morally demoralize them if they hear the president. But everything surrounding this will definitely be published. But the fall of the regime has really begun, and it was supposed to start in September. There was a bit of a delay. And when I say to agree with Zelensky, I don't mean that, guys, do whatever you want, I agree to everything. Well, people understand it a little differently, but that's okay. The essence doesn't change because of that. Dima Torzok Zelensky at the beginning.
of the end. Following the major corruption scandal, Zelensky faces three options: keep Yermak and risk a crisis, surrender him and come under globalist control, or promote him within the administration. Russia, or try to strike a crushing blow against National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, tightening the screws as much as possible, reducing mobilization, basically taking a risk.
With a coup.
Of these three scenarios, which one do you think is the most realistic? Why? And will Zelensky be able to make it this time and have the local events driven him into a hopeless situation, or will he manage to slip through? Well, that's the kind of
question. No, he definitely won't slip through. I say it again, knowing Zelensky, I think he'll go all out.
So.
For what's left of common sense, given the American position.
Today,
They'll force him out. I don't know how to respond. Can you imagine not firing Yermak after all this? Well, that's probably part of going all in. If he doesn't fire Yermak, doesn't back down, keeps fussing, it's just unbelievable. So Zelensky is still seriously considering whether to fire him or not? Well, let's wait until tomorrow. Maybe it will be announced tomorrow in
Thursday. Yes, Zelensky will return tomorrow. Let's see what happens on Thursday. So users are asking, what's this about Yermak leaving? London and the meeting with Vitkov. Why wasn't Zelensky's meeting without Yermak confirmed? And is it true that Zaluzhny was supposed to meet Yermak in London? Why was this being spread? Asks.
Well, it's true. It was being spread. I didn't publish this information on my own, but with reference to the media, it was Babel who published it, citing two sources. I saw Yermak in a video from Turkey today, and Vitkov wasn't there. That's 100%. Apparently, they were sitting there. Zelensky, either they're sitting now, or Zelensky will be sitting on the chairs.
Well, Yermak...
Zelensky died, and they discussed next steps.
They were deciding, well, again, yes, I noticed this is really a trend. Last week, on one of the streams, the host asked you if Petlenok Mendich's publication could be considered Trump putting pressure on Zelensky. You answered that no, Trump hasn't started putting pressure yet. Why, and what do you think? So how can we tell when Trump will actually start putting pressure on
Zelensky? Trump isn't commenting on this right now.
Situation. Yes, that's what's surprising.
Kind of pressure because he's showing that he's staying out of this situation, and then the military intelligence agencies take over. So even, well, it's like when they start ignoring you, stop talking to you, we can already interpret this as pressure from Trump. Well, you see, that's exactly the point. People believe Trump will hold a press conference and say, Zelensky, if you don't comply, I'll have to admit this is Trump pressuring you. But today, it's a bit more complicated. Are you looking at the essence of what's happening? Zelensky's regime is ending now, that's all. And spinning around this is just a story.
Continuation. Dennis, in your opinion, can Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner have a say in choosing the candidate for president of Ukraine from the outside?
The United States, well,
of course, well,
it's not that simple. People assume things are easy. Just cross someone off a list. But it's not like that. You can support more than one person. You can support a person in 5 years, in 2031, and build your plans on that. Americans never plan for a month or a year. Americans plan for decades. Please keep this in mind. The combination may last longer and be cooler than expected. Jared Kushner strongly influences Trump.
Yes, it's just that someone told me, well, again, according to experts, Zelensky was approved God knows when that he would be president, approved at the American embassy. They started filming the movie precisely because of this, not because some genius whispered something, in his ear, or an angel came down from heaven. And all of this is actually a big scheme by the Americans. Yes, the Americans, and let's say that wing of the American government. What do you think about this?
About it? No, the globalists approved him, but they weren't the only ones. We all remember Firtash's gatherings in Vienna and who visited him. It's not that simple. Globalists probably didn't mind. They practically approved him. I'm not sure I should say it like that, but remember how the radicals you mentioned attacked the presidential administration? Those same radicals now work for the globalists. I believe that's incorrect. Let me remind you again, Zelensky submitted documents to run for president when Poroshenko won in 2014. And then they withdrew them already during the process of being reviewed by the Central Election Commission. They voluntarily withdrew them themselves, but he definitely did submit them. That's why he kept it to himself. He came up with servant of the people to carry out this whole scheme. He's obsessed with this, dreams about it, and has long considered himself great.
To be continued. So here's a question from Alexander Kotov. Well, so why do you have so much hatred towards Russia? You can't even hide it very well, can you? When someone tells you that something is wrong in America, you say, like, have you even been there? Second question, have you been to Russia, or do you only listen to Khodorkovsky?
Kasparov, I can't stand him and I don't listen to Khodorkovsky. Hating Russia isn't accurate. No, I have no hatred towards Russia. I have hatred towards the Putin regime, towards Putinists, because they have done a lot to sow hatred towards us. I often see comments on our streams showing outright hatred toward me, Ukraine, and Ukrainians. I honestly can't understand this. I have no hatred towards the Russian people. I'm not a Nazi. I don't judge people by their passport. There are both good and bad people in Russia, but many unfortunately support Putin's actions. I speak out against them.
Why? Did Zelensky speak rudely to a journalist about corruption? He doesn't understand that this kind of behavior confirms that he knows about it, or he's just digging himself in deeper.
Continuation, I'll nationalize.
I won't nationalize, I'll nationalize them, I won't nationalize them, I'll nationalize them.
I'll nationalize them. I won't, I'll nationalize them. I won't. Them. Live your life, it's the same. We don't have an opera. When Vasilchuk sat with Natalia, the usual propagandist, he compared corruption to treason against the motherland and even nearly mentioned execution. Well, that all happened. So, you're judging how the president's words differ from his actions and what's really on his mind, what he's actually doing. I think anyone here with even minimal critical thinking doesn't need to be convinced of anything anymore. He doesn't necessarily have to sympathize with me or with you, but to understand such a
Zelensky, okay, let's move to the broadcast chat. So here we have Sergey asks why Trump gets so nervous when he's asked questions about Epstein. Why does Epstein's brother accuse Trump of lying, saying he had nothing to do with Epstein and his crimes against...
Why does Trump get so nervous around children?
Yes.
I don't know why he's nervous. Well, the fact that he knew Epstein is true. As I said, taking a photo with a cameraman doesn't make me one, nor does posing with a doctor make me a doctor. That's just New York's bohemian scene. It's absurd that a pedophile is present.
Just, well, not exactly. Maybe that's it. You see, something like this is coming to light here. Well, conspiracy theories, conspiracy, all of it, all these people, that's what it is, all of that. Varevo is a closed club, that's all. They decide our fate there, and look at them. Who knows what they're up to? And Trump is the same, one of their own. I mean, you see, these are the people we're talking about.
No, this is just politics. Today, Trump Jr. said that Epstein hated Trump, and there are some screenshots of email exchanges, like he was preparing to impeach Trump. Well, he was involved in that. That's why this is all a tough political battle.
I'm already so used to this here. I look at it a bit more lightly. So, why is Trump silent about the scandal? We discussed it, Dennis commented. Don't you think that he already took everything of his from Ukraine after signing the deal? By the way, what happens to the mineral deal? Not the firewood?
The planes came, he took the minerals, loaded them and left. That's absurd. People who think that way, unfortunately I can't. Well, I'm powerless in such cases. The deal will work. It's a long-term American project signed with more than just Ukraine. This is for years, for decades ahead. It's okay. The deal will work. The war will end. Things will get going. This is a very long-term project and very...
Alexander, question for Dennis. Well, what will happen to Ukraine's oligarchs like Pinchuk and Akhmetov? After all, they will slow down all the reforms and processes you...
are talking about. I don't know about that, I suppose so. At some point, even before the war, I allowed myself to think that the oligarch would soon be replaced by corporations. Thank you, that didn't happen. They are still people with a lot of resources and still want to influence politics. I'll say this, I don't know what will happen, who will support whom or what. It's a question of historical scale and the scale of personality. So if one of them wants to make Ukraine a country for themselves, to live, work, keep their money and so on, or will it still be a cash cow?
Cow. By the way, that's an important question, of course. Because they have everything abroad. The longest yachts in the world. Abroad, yes, the biggest estates, the biggest ones, and even Zelensky and his Green Gang have everything abroad too. Yachts, houses, London, and so on and so on. So. Alright, oh, the rustle of the pink pony, thank you for the broadcast. Yes, friends, thank you so much for writing. Just keep writing, and write good things too. You know, do you read? Well, really, I encourage everyone to write good things. Not because I like flattery, but because, well, let's try to balance things out somehow. So, well, Yelisevich has a high opinion of himself. You're nobody to Russians, nobody. Why should we hate you? Just because you're spiteful without knowing anything about Russia. But look, who said that Yelisevich wants to be somebody for Russians? Well,
Here,
yes. Well, that's also a very important question. Look, there you speak Russian, we speak Russian. Before the war, we speak the language, well, like our mothers, our native language. If our mothers there spoke Ukrainian, then all those Ukrainians you hear speaking Russian would be speaking Ukrainian, you see? Some people struggle with the language, others distort it. The main issue is our shared future. I would really like us to focus, as we wrap up the stream, on some global issues, on big projects. You can love Russia or not love Russia, but the fact is that at least they're trying in some way to keep up with the times, and these times are harsh. They're going to be technologically harsh. Part of GPT deceives to the right, to the left, leading weak people to take their own lives. Robots, again, labor resources, economic relations. So we need to think about this. Here in Ukraine, everything is tougher and more destructive for Ukrainians. This is preparation.
this is the globalist plan. People shouldn't participate in political life and shouldn't think about themselves, about their future, about the future of Ukraine. The goal should be to survive. Survive, either not to starve to death or not to die from a missile or at the front. I'm completely serious. To them, Ukraine is just a buffer, not a country. And I absolutely do not
Agree with that. Friends, I want
Ukraine to be a field.
of battles. Well, I want at least something. Well, you know, what I remember very often, and I don't know. I think we also talked about this in some of our early meetings, and we talked about it with others too. Look, Ukraine, 1991, second after France, economic potential, power, people, population, educated, all the factories, ships, everything is there. Well, I mean, a juicy piece. You see, now all of that is gone. Well, there's nothing left. Only the land and water are left, thank God. Ukraine faces a drinking water shortage, though it's less severe than in some other areas. Land, water, air, mountains. Those stations over there, the Soviet ones, are being modernized somehow. Electric ones, some kind of cascade, thermal power plants, well, something like that. They extracted gas from the ground, so there's no more of that production, no more of that future. You know, after the war ends, we have to immediately think about the future, about what we're going to produce. Not drones, for example, but maybe, I don't know, maybe we really will be there. Maybe we'll be making those flying cars like in the movie The Fifth Element, or maybe some kind of delivery drones. Maybe that's our purpose. Well, the fact that there are very few of them left is really true. Just to put a period on that and about people as well, this is absolutely a Ukrainian story. A viewer asked this question. I went and double-checked, and that's exactly how it is. The State Employment Service of Ukraine then reports, in order to fill jobs with male professions, 175,000 women were employed in September and October. In particular, here we have jobs like tower crane operator, machine assembler fitter, and trolley bus driver. Installers, how do you feel about this? Yes, and how does this relate to our so-called equalization? Gender-based? So does that mean there are no more female or male roles now? Professions, they've been equalized as much as possible?
Everyone, look, Sash, commenting on agency statements and statistics in this country is pointless right now. But what you said about the original opposition in 91 and now does make sense. That's why the main resource in Ukraine shouldn't be oil or gas, but brains. And name me another country in Europe where, well, let's put it this way. There's nothing established except idiocy. Try to seriously reform America. I assure you, everything here is so sluggish, established, and functioning. It's extremely difficult to do. Even in Western Europe, Ukraine offers ideal conditions for living, doing business, and most importantly, self-fulfillment. That's what I stand for. As for the claim that nothing is left, there are at least 3,000 to 5,000 state enterprises, and there are still quite a few resources. And that's something you can work with as well. What should be produced or not produced? We shouldn't focus solely on an industrial economy. This isn't the Soviet Union. We need to ensure a good business climate so the market can decide what to produce. Drones, forks, spoons, computers, or I repeat, nothing. Now, about 80% of the modern economy's gross domestic product consists of services, so Singapore and Hong Kong don't need anything
to produce. Budanov comes out and says, well, first of all, it's encouraging. He says it himself. Listen, everything's changed for him. Remember Budanov? He used to talk about Putin's doubles, remember? He says,
well,
of course, he says, yes, there are, but they're needed for a reason. Well, I mean, for business, to save time, or if there's some danger, to send it. So, how does that work? Well, how does that work? It's a normal thing. So, well, he's like a scout. He gives a big interview, and now different fragments are appearing. So, well, and the most important thing, so that I wanted to put a period on air, but let's put an exclamation mark instead. Without Trump, there is no chance of ending the fighting in Ukraine. Head of the main intelligence directorate, Budanov, what is this?
What does it mean? Kirilo has seen the truth. I'd like to talk to some of them myself and find out what kind of person Kirilo really is. What kind of person is he? To me, his foolish statements made him incomprehensible. Now, the entire head of the main intelligence directorate, I'm saying this without irony, has been filled. He emerges in late 2025, saying what Yelisevich said in 2022, when Yelisevich was nearly called a Russian agent. How do the metamorphoses of this life happen? Metamorphoses. Source-funded United States Agency for International Development Publications like Yelisevich claimed corruption in Ukraine without evidence. Well, look at National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine is recordings, and those commission programs were filmed, and they probably talked about you there too. You see, that's all there is to it. You just have to know how.
The wait, yes.
Budanov saw the light. In short, Budanov
saw the light. Budanov made us happy. This is another piece of the puzzle in the mosaic that will keep unfolding tomorrow. What will Zelensky do, and which way will things go?
Oh, tomorrow the heat will start. Oh, tomorrow it will begin.
Which way will the winds blow in the heat? Dennis, thanks for your time.
Thoughts. Thank you. Thank you to the viewers, even
to the haters. Yes, friends, thank you all very much for the good and kind comments, and for the not so good and unkind ones. In general, thank you for being with us live. Please don't forget to leave a like. This is crucial for YouTube, especially now. I'm actually waiting for the sanctions to be lifted from all YouTube platforms from all of this. That's what I'm waiting for. I
wish that for you, because who imposed the sanctions? A corrupt gang.
Remotely, the NSDC from the deceased, now you see the NSDC of the deceased who are mentioned in Mindish's tapes. He officially has suspicions against him. There's still a lot we haven't heard, and he was also recorded. Let's help YouTube get rid of sanctions and give it a like. Take care of yourself and each other.